26th, St. Mary City Commission regular meeting. First item, we're going to take a look at appropriation ordinance number 1297. Or you said
Nothing stood out. There is the Thomas Gainer 15,000. County Vance Brothers.
Does that have that project?
15,000 for Thomas Gainer. Would this be the rest of it?
Yeah.
Just together.
Are there any other questions or comments? And then I'd entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Appropriation ordinance 1297 as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed. Minutes for last meeting. Those are approved. We need to add to the agenda the master fee resolution.
5-26.
5-26. Put that at
For the refuse rates.
the master fee. Anything else to add?
As part of the comprehensive plan, like I could, maybe we could spend a minutes. I'd like to ask the fellow commissioners some questions about what we can do at the county level, because this magnitude of potential data centers here, how big is the city? Like what can we know about that? What's the story of that at the local level? I don't know if there's anything to act on that, but at least it's a discussion. I know. Yeah.
So let's move on to first item, water and sewer rates. And you want to speak to this at all?
Francis had asked this yet.
Okay, yeah. You can find a lot of data.
We can come up. Like if
So go ahead, Bryce, if you want to take the lead on this.
I think what you could do is update the public about a work session that we had.
Could do that. I'll do that part. We had a work session last Wednesday about the situation with the sewer plant, the water treatment plant, and the water system in town. The majority of that time was spent talking about the sewage system. And the takeaway, we were aware of this. We have to generate a 20-year plan, and they're working on that. But we're actually under a little bit of a timeline, as it turns out, because we're going out of spec. We're under a mandate now to meet certain level of phosphates in the system, and we're not looking good there. So we have to do something. We at least have to present a plan by something like the 15th soon, and they're going to present us with a plan. We don't have to achieve the new level at that time, but we have to have a plan. The bottom line on that is it's a very costly thing.
The improvements that they propose could be phased in.
They could be phased in, but I think for the initial we're looking at least $2 million with a total of up to $5 million. And I do not see a way not to do that. So that's why we definitely need to talk about rates. So that's
And that's just the principal cost.
Yeah, that's just right.
As I learned
That's
my article from 2020, the
right.
interest.
So that was the sewage part, and there'll be more details on exactly what they recommend must be done, and then what could be done, and then we'll decide what we want to go forward with. And then the second part on water is just re-presenting the different phases, proposed phases of things that need to be replaced. the big concern to me there was, we've talked about before, there are three the big problem challenge is that all the water supply is on this side of the railroad tracks. The water pressure comes from the other side of the railroad tracks. And two out of the other three pipes are fairly small capacity pipes, really should be replaced. So the first priority is replacing the one that goes under the track on the east end of town, and getting a line of new higher capacity up to the tanks to the north of the city. So that's what we need to look at there. Each one of those phases is the $1.8 to $2 million if we take them as presented. So that's another situation where, in my opinion, we can't not do it. It's a question of what we have to do first, and then what's the smartest way to put things together. So that speaks to, given that the money to pay for those things is going to have to be, we're going to have to take out some kind of loan. We're gonna pay back those loans by raising rates. There's no way around that. So that's, I think, a reasonable summary of what we talked about. And then Francis added this to the agenda, so if you want to start, please.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so yeah, the work session I thought was very helpful, very effective, and so I asked, let's have a discussion about rates. So many years ago, when we had some of these studies done, we knew that we would start to get into large projects, and we wanted to start building up a little bit of cash and a rate structure to support those projects. And I think the intention back then was, in as much as possible, to pay for these projects with cash. Last year, we did our first project. We paid for it in cash. It worked pretty well. That was out of the water fund. We also made several improvements to the sewer plant, equipment upgrades, and various things. We paid for all those in cash. And so I think overall, from my perspective, we're in a pretty good situation because our current rates bring in enough money to be able to take care of a lot of these capital improvement projects that we are seeing. And so even though it looks like a big bill, it's like, a lot of money. If we step back and just run some quick numbers, and these are my numbers based on my analysis of our budgets and costs, expenditures, and revenues and everything. But last year, I believe our water revenues were somewhere in the ballpark of, as the December financials for year-to-date revenues are correct, which I think are pretty close. The water was about $470,000. That's in revenue. And then the sewer revenue was about $532,000, right around there. So current revenues in water, current revenues in sewer, 470 for water, 432 in sewer. So when I kind of play around with my little 10-year plan document and looking at past and future, I kind of break up our expenditures into what I call day-to-day costs. So whether we do a capital improvement project or not, we're going to have day-to-day costs. So what are all those costs? And what among those costs do we have available with the revenues that we have coming in for capital improvements? These are rough figures, but I would argue they're not too far off. We take our day-to-day costs for the water and the sewer for each department, what our revenues are currently bringing in above our day-to-day costs to account for some of the larger capital improvement projects. I'm estimating somewhere around $200,000 a year for each of those funds. So in the sewer fund, we can pay for all of our day-to-day and still have about $200,000 for capital improvements. In our water fund, we can pay for all of our day-to-day and still have about $200,000 in capital improvements. Those are not dead accurate. They're within probably, I would say 10%. I would say that's a safe. From my perspective, I'd be comfortable saying 10%. So right around the $200,000 mark. And so when we look at some of these upcoming projects, to pay for them in cash, that could be a little bit difficult. One, because of inflation. So if we do a project, $200,000 a year, increase in labor and materials and everything, also
that 200,000 just going to shrink and projects are only going to get more expensive. So the concept comes up: do we do some of these projects and take out a bond? And then Maurice did all the research, and I think he gave us a very good general number to kind of reference. For a 20-year bond at 5% interest for $1 million, it's about an $80,000 a year payment. So that's a good point of reference. So $80,000 a year takes care of a $1 million bond over 20 years. And if we back out of that and say, well, according to my numbers, we have about $200,000 for capital improvements. Granted, there's always going to be projects that come up, water lines break, sewer things bust up, whatever. So maybe we say, I don't know, $50,000 a year is kind of for what Murphy's Law. So we have about $150,000 a year to put towards capital improvements. So we almost have about $2 million currently, very rough numbers here, about $2 million of bond payments already somewhat within our current rate structure. I think we're in a pretty good situation to where we don't have to raise rates significantly. I need to do a deeper dive analysis of it, but I do believe probably prudent to take a look at the rates and have the discussion about, do they need to inch up a little bit? What percent? How much? How do we want those structures to be? To just make sure that we know we're on the low side on our rate structures compared to a lot of cities. And we also know that we're going to take our infrastructure seriously. We're going to be knocking out these projects in the next several years. So I think we have a prudent room to increase the rates to make sure we're able to get these projects going with a little bit of confidence. As far as how big the projects, all that's going to be discussed later. Happy to go further into where I get my numbers from if needed, but so I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions.
Quick question on just how the rates in St. Mary's are set up. Maybe just so that it's on the record. Is it a static fee? It's not just for inflation. It's something that is decided, and that's just a flat fee every month. And when was the last time that was set?
I don't remember when it was last done. We can find out because the resolution, but yeah. So there's a $8 charge and then a consumption charge, and then it just goes by volume. So if you have a dry summer, you use a lot more water. If you use a wet summer, you might sell less water. But there's other factors, just like the electric. When it stays cold for a longer time, people use more power, it seems like, but then if it's a milder time, they might not use as much. So I'm not sure what that fluctuates. I'll ask Brock to.
So it'd be safe to say that it doesn't self-adjust for inflation, right? Like it
It's
doesn't,
automatic.
right?
No.
I guess my big question, based upon the spreadsheet that Maury sent out, called SM Water and Sewer Model, and then this thing. When I look on page, well, on page number, but number 8, it's just one of them. St. Mary's Utility Financial Position 2024. I would like that. If we have $200,000 a year to work with, that's great, because that would give us a significant amount of money to put for paying.
And is that what you transfer out into the reserve fund to pay the project out of the reserve fund?
Well, however we did, but so I'm just, but that doesn't say $200,000. So I'm wondering.
I want you to know that that is a rough, thumbnail. I did not go through and analyze like Francis did, whatever, but it's just for discussion only.
So part of the reason that last year the water utility, for instance, it shows that we were negative $190,000. Well, you just back up and say, well, what do we pay for out of the water utility? We pay for a $250,000 infrastructure project. So you got to reduce that $250,000.
Well, all I want to know is I would just like to have numbers that I can count on it being accurate. Because before we can make a decision about whether or not we need to finance something.
Yeah.
We'd also want to determine what you believe needs to be done.
Sure.
And if you think more than $2 million needs to be done, and that sort of stuff, you have to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, but even with and I'm not arguing with your numbers, Francis. I like what you're saying. I would like that to be true, just not corresponding to what I'm looking at. And I am assuming though that the comparisons with rates from other places, that comparison is accurate. And it looks like we have plenty of room in the water fund utility, water in particular, to raise some rates without.
Well, if you want to compare yourself to other people's rates, that always comes up when we have these kind of discussions. But ultimately, the City of St. Mary's rates need to be based on the City of St. Mary's expenses, and that. When I originally did one of the versions of the water study, Minneapolis, Kansas was below us. And when I redone it, how many number of times they got kicked out somehow.
Yeah.
So the reason the city's inexpensive with water is that we get it from wells.
Right. And I'm not saying we should charge more than what we.
No, I'm just saying.
If we're looking at, to my off the top of my head, to do either of those, the two, phase 1, phase 2, that's about $2 million. And so that's using this rule of thumb, that's at least $160,000 of
debt service,
and
interest rate, time.
Or cost, but it wouldn't necessarily be cost. So I would just want to be sure. So that's what I would really like to see is not just guessing. I would always say guesses, but
So on that note, so one of the big line item that I think is the variable in our budgets, which it changes every year, but it's the distribution maintenance, because distribution maintenance includes big projects, so one-time capital improvement, but it also includes
fire hydrants.
Yeah, just day-to-day maintenance, replacement of valves, hydrants, random things that are going to come up every year, whether or not we do capital improvement projects. So it's really trying to take that line item and try to separate out what amount in that line item. And for example, water for last year, the distribution maintenance was $120,000. In 2025, it was $217,000. Or no, the budget for 26 is 120. 2025 it was 217,000. 2024 it was 112,000. So $105,000. So there's big fluctuations in that line item. I am trying to dive into that a little bit when I do my analysis. What amount is capital improvement? What's day-to-day maintenance? And then what does that allow us flexibility for taking that capital improvement portion of that line item, allocating that towards bond payment.
In 2.5 years, the water tower's paid off, so that's $39,000 that you have freed up.
So that's where my numbers are a little loose. That's why I do think we need to take a look at the rate structure. And I believe that I think we will have to raise rates if we do want to take on one of these bonds.
Like this is good in as far as like the second residential water bill comparison. We are the lowest, but the next person up or the next city up is $10.25 away. It's like, okay, one, are we undercharging, or two, we could raise some, but not, and still remain, the lowest.
So within the water itself, there's a base fee of $8 and a consumption charge. And this has been discussed by previous commissions. I just want you to be aware of it. That the lower the base fee, the less of a burden it puts on the smaller users. You raise the base fee, it secures more revenue, and you can lower the consumption amount. So there's this back and forth, and that sort of stuff.
And also you can see, what cities are on the lower end and just look into why that is. It's because they never raise the rates, or do they have a lower
Operating
cost?
costs.
Yeah, operating costs.
A lot of times that's it. They just don't have any debt. A lot of these cities don't have debt service. I mean, it just depends on what's happening in their communities.
So it's able, something for us to do some due diligence to see why they're lower.
So I appreciate this spreadsheet in particular. I'm looking at the tab called water inputs. That's where I think Francis is getting his numbers. That's precisely what we need to see. So
24 and 25 are the audit numbers. I put those in there just so that
yeah,
as the budget numbers we do can be wishy-washy.
yeah, but they're going to be pretty accurate. And so it's just a question of what do we want to do? How much does that cost?
So if I make a suggestion, Mr. Ray, I think on that distribution line item in the budget, because that also includes our capital improvement, can we go back over the last, I think 3, maybe 5 years,
On the distribution line item
and
and
then
bring it out.
and then pull out the items which are day-to-day maintenance, normal routine maintenance that happen every year, versus the ones that are one-time large expenses.
So that you mentioned, I keep forgetting that we're getting new software after the first of the year, and not only will it let you track projects, it will let you track like each well house that we put. We'll code it, and then there'll be an extra code for that well house. So we'll be able to run a report on the well house and pull that stuff out. But yes, I can do what you're asking.
It's gonna be a majority on it.
It's going to be a majority of that line item or capital improvement.
No, the maintenance.
And if I had to guess, which I do, I would say that the routine costs are running about $110,000 to $115,000 a year
In the water.
in the water, yeah. Because you have as you noted, 112, 120, we're budgeting 150, and then in between you have a 217, which clearly I'm guessing that there was a large $100,000 thing that was done. Whatever year that was. But I think that would be a good thing to know, so that for
That
budget
one,
purposes, we could say, what is the actual normal day-to-day operation, so we can break out the additional costs.
just give her a minute. She'll run it. It's just a code.
How many years?
Three.
Yeah, 3 years. Probably fine, but then again, maybe so on that water project that we did last year.
1A.
Yeah, I can pull back your some of the number analysis, but in these numbers in your water inputs on this distribution maintenance,
Where are they at?
so for instance on 2025 actual, you have 217,000.
Yeah.
So on the 217,000, how much of that would be that Ubuntu?
Lunik? Well, because that was spread over 2 years, right? The audit thing.
Last year, this year.
We can pull. I don't know exactly what it is. The reason I say I don't is because I've ran so many versions, and I've tried to put it in one line item, and it would fight me. But
Let's see if I can.
yeah, I won't be able to answer that question. But she prints off the line item though. You'll be able to see the Lunik ones, and we can already print by vendor, of course. You see what the total cost of the project was. That's what's in it. But the new software offers asset management as a already included, but within there it has these ways to track individual assets, like our well houses. The more the maintenance you spend on that, the more likely you have a problem. So, but no, I wasn't ready for that question, Francis. I apologize.
Well, I think you're right. The biggest number, and probably not least clear about what it means, is the distribution maintenance. But a lot of that stuff, I think, should be fairly stable. Things like
one of those pages there's a footnote.
Office meeting, training, liability insurance, dues, insurance. I mean, that stuff is predictable.
Well, yeah, but we got into that line where we paid 2 of it 1 year, none of it 1 year. But in general, yes, it's clockwork. We should already have it in our system, but we haven't got our bill yet.
So
So
when
that
you get to things like distribution maintenance, material supply, maybe chemicals even, we don't know
chemicals
how
isn't
that's being.
in so much, but the way Don looks at it, he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen. He would like a certain amount of money available,
Sure.
but to predict it, so she's printing out something for you. We should have that information in there. But,
So I think we understand what we're after here. The question is, when will we be in a good position to talk about what the rates should be? I think we're all agree we need to look at rates, and likely they're going to have to change in the upward direction. But I don't think we can put a number on that until we know first of all what we want to pay for it, and then
I would say both. The engineer told us, like on the sewer, for instance, 2 years from getting bid, once we get into the go cycle. 2 years design process, approval process.
But as Francis is saying, we need to bump those up now in
Correct.
anticipation.
I thought that you were saying the opposite. Okay, it'll be
No, I'm trying to get to the point where we can make a reasonable
I see.
decision and change actual numbers sooner rather than later, but not just yet. So like that.
She got us the distribution system maintenance line, 530, 630, 6810. It's in backwards order, so it starts in 2026. It goes clear back to 2023, February. Oluna is at the top, 57,000, one of the payments. That was that last one we just did, I guess. Well, 7. So last year, or was it the year before, that well house in the park dropped about 25 and 30,000 on that. And that would be that Sublime. Oh yes, we had that maintenance agreement with Viking Industrial paying for the North Water Tower. Now that 34,000 might have been the last big payment for a while. It's in our book, our book budget. Alexander Pump. That's it says a Parkville irrigation. Yeah. I'm trying to find that company from Salina.
$70,000.
Yeah. So go to the next page. It's 144.
Oh, Sergeant Drilling. So when you look at on the top of the second page, or sort of the top, 30,935 Sergeant Drilling. That was for repairing well 7 in the park. We do not believe it's going to be that much. So when we do the budget this year, we want to propose having each well house inspected every third year, so that every year we're able to get through, and that's going to be about 10 grand. Don estimates to have the well house looked at, and we can avoid the issues of the one park. And on that original capital improvement budget, that's, if you went down to it, that's where I had all the detail, because that's the one that concerns me the most. The well houses and the purchases there too. So,
How much redundancy do we have for the wells?
how much what? Redundancy?
How many of them can you bring?
Well, I do believe we can have one that be offline. Just like in the pump station, we can have one of the pumps out of the pump station, and we find it's designed for redundancy. I don't know. In one of the water reports, it does talk about that, our gallons per minute, and I do have the raw data, our files show that, but I don't know what the numbers. But I do believe we have. Well, we have had the well down. Well, 7's down while it's being repaired last year, and we've had it down previously as well too. So, what are you missing? Where are you looking for?
So this December financials for last year, I know those are
Unaudited, yes.
they show distribution system maintenance $9,000.
We may have charged that project to it, and the auditor moved it. One of those type things.
Where did you move it to?
Remember that line item you questioned us about? That was in the back of the financials. It's a different line item. That's where you went to a different line item. You said, remember this, a few months ago, you said the totals are right in the water fund, but it's off as far as that amount. We have to pull it. He does move stuff from line items, but where he moved it offhand, I don't know.
In any case, what I think we can see from this is we've got the Viking payments that's scheduled. And then we can tie these other things, these major pump projects.
So we want to have
or
a
the
well house maintenance program, just like we have the North Tower, and that company that the Midco diving one that's going to replace those bars up there or whatever. We would like to talk to them about doing a midterm inspection to see if the bars are working as they're installed, and if there's something we could do there. That should be a lower maintenance situation because of the glass lining, but it still needs to be kept an eye on.
Is the math on the rate increases like $1 times 800, but not approximately 900 homes per month? Is that the impact?
It would be so the base fee would be that. If you have $8 for a base fee and you raise it to $9, that would be just $1. So you say you use 10,000 gallons a month, you divide that by 1,000. That gives you a unit. That gives you 1,000 units, and if it's $250 per thousand, you pay $8 plus the consumption amount. So in one of those, it shows you the math. But yes, the consumption amount is a guessing game. I mean, it's relatively steady to a certain degree, but there's ups and downs. So you increase it by. And another thing is, once you start increasing, if you do water rates, certain people start conserving. So it doesn't, But yes.
Who is responsible for infrastructure outside of the city?
Which particular infrastructure, because it's different. The Guadalupe is the city of St. Mary's water. They put it in, and we took it over. Country Breeze, although it's designed to be self-sufficient, and there's supposed to be a metered road, the Kansas Corporation Commission said it was the city's to maintain, so we maintain the water infrastructure there. Now, they pay 5% more than in-city customers. Now, there are some other water lines that are private water lines that go out for a few houses that we don't maintain, and for the water. So there's different scenarios.
So what's the theory of the 5% more seems like it might be too little if the city maintains it and too much if the city doesn't?
Well, so here's the thing on the pipe. See, like Guadalupe, they put in the proper size pipe, the PVC, all those years ago. It's in a good situation. It could be 25 or 30 years worth of no repairs if something doesn't happen, right? So you're collecting 5% for all those decades. If you're setting it aside, or if not, you just make it part of yours. Country Breeze will have a break every once in a while, and they used to take care of it internally until the Kansas Corporation Commission said otherwise. But I don't know. You'd have to sit down and come up with some way to, account for it. Generally, the farther homes are apart, the less likely they are to cash flow through the municipality, right? So that's where we find ourselves.
All right. It's interesting that you have 927 people getting water and 930 on the sewer. Some people have sewer but no water.
Well, those numbers change from each month, and We may each have a sewer customer. Slide.
Looks like you want to say something, Chris.
Sure. I guess 2 questions. One is on the rate analysis, the other one's on the projects. So, things take time, but once you get them started, they eventually happen. So I'd like to maybe keep those 2 concepts, the rate structures and then the projects themselves for water and sewer that we talked about at the work session. Keep them on our agendas and then just kind of start identifying as far as the projects go, what are next steps. So let's discuss those different phases. Let's discuss, do we want to do part of it, all of it, which parts. Let's try to dive into each one of those. With the water, just revisit those options. Try to make a choice. Get the engineer back in here if needed. Say, all right, we'd like to do phase 1, phase whatever, modified, and then just start the process on them. And then at the same time, we can drill down and get a better understanding of the rates of that distribution line item, and then start discussing what we want to do with rates. But I think if we have the intention of we are going to move forward with these projects, and we are going to find the rate structure that's going to allow us to do these projects, let's start meeting after meeting. Might take a month or 2 or 3, but we'll get there. But let's maybe at the next meeting work on those, each department, which projects we want, a lot of options, and identify it.
So my question is, if anyone wants to talk about that now, because I already have pretty strong opinions about both. But then we need the data to come in. We need, I think, from the sewage plant, we have to do whatever's necessary to help knock that phosphorus down. And so I think we're waiting to hear from Daniel on precisely which of those things are necessary to do that. And then we decide what else we want to add on to that. But I'm looking at least $2 million on that. I think we know that already. And I think we have to do that. For the water, I think we should replace both of the east and the west end side of the pipes going under the track at the same time. We get one permit from the railroad, and then we go as phase 1 up to the water tower over from, I think it's First Street or whatever it is, that's the east side, up to that tower. So I'm looking at, I think that's another $2 million. I don't think we have to do the Palmer Street section right away. I think it would be prudent to do that. More than prudent, I think it's necessary. I really don't like that situation. Small lines going out. So that's my opinion. I mean, I'm already confident we need to do those 2 things. And I think that means $2 million for water and $2 million for sewer as sort of a good enough planning number so that we could then do the other part. That's my opinion.
So we moved it to the equipment reserve. And it was a negative because it was a budget adjustment or something like that. So it's an unusual because it's so big, it stuck out. Because normally I pay no attention to it. But that was taking money away from the cash.
Yeah.
Because you said it all added up. And then I looked into it, so I couldn't remember that night.
So whatever you just showed them made that number negative on this.
Well, if you want to know where it was moved to, it was moved to equipment reserve. So it would be on the December financials, and they put it in as a negative, so they bring the cash down that amount because there was an audit adjustment ready to happen, and so be it. It's just we're not a huge city, but even these things just complicate matters, you know.
So I don't know if you heard my last part there, but I do think, based upon the number that you gave, the rule of thumb number, $80,000 a year per $1 million, I'm saying we need to be looking at $200,000 a year. The amount that we think is available, but we could maybe give ourselves a little bit of a cushion by raising the rate. So we might be in pretty good position.
Roughly, just take after a couple $1 million of a bond. Real quick, I should speak a little bit after, but it's about a 20% increase in rates. It's about another $100,000 a year for 20% over 500,000 to 400,000. Roughly a 20% increase in rates across the board, and that would, I think, with our current capital. But I'm gonna have that's analysis for a future meeting when we dive into the rates. But I was a little bit like shocked, like, oh no, rates are gonna go 50%, but now it's trying to build it, but it is an increase, but especially when you take a look in relation to other cities, we're still be on the low end as far as our entire fleet structure. But going back, Mr. Mayor, to what you said about moving forward and your opinion on what projects for the sewer, looking at the projects he pulled out as far as first phase, if you were to choose, keep the dollar amount down. Yeah, it was about a couple $1 million holding off for the projects. And same with the water, doing the 2 under the railroad, maybe pausing on Palmer Street, but then making that connection up to 63. I would agree with you on both of those.
Is there anyone who feels differently on the water line? How about that? Skipping Palmer and doing the 2 under railroad?
I think it's very prudent to do the 2 under the track at the same time, and the other line replacing all the iron pipes at the same time. Not all, but a good percentage of them.
So I think that we just need to really be confident of our numbers so we can make a reason. Obviously, we can adjust a little bit as we move forward, but I'd like to make a good quantitative.
So I'm happy to do it, but I think Grace has got some crazy spreadsheets going that are pretty neat right now. But diving into the day-to-day costs, our normal routine maintenance costs, let's try to pull that all out so that the next meeting get a little bit better understanding of where we are on.
You're asking that with one of those maintenance line items?
Yeah, just kind of what if we're doing a bond to do these projects, we're probably not going to do any major infrastructure projects while we do these projects.
Correct.
And so, just
what's our base minimum on our maintenance?
current rates? What is that? How much money in our budget do we have for capital that we can allocate towards the bond?
And I'll go through what I'll do. I'll go through the line items of 6810 distribution and sewers, the collection one. See,
Yeah, just which ones are 1-year expenditures?
yes.
What can we expect year to year to be constant? What's going to be
And as you are re-wickering the sheet on the water inputs page, you can take out everything other than phase 1. Because right now, you're basing the debt on doing all those at the same time. That keeps it completely.
I maxed it out to make sure all the cells
it's a lot better than it looks on the spreadsheet. If you do one, as you're adjusting, that's significant.
Yeah, I hadn't planned to update it at any time, so I think it's for you folks to kind of manipulate on your own, just try out your own, and then give me direction at some point. Did anyone go through the capital improvement one? The capital improvement one? Okay, that's my favorite. No. I will go through those line items, and what I'll say is I'll go through both of those budgets, and the line items that have those big charges to them, just to identify them and we'll see. So.
Another thing would be figuring the actual marginal cost for 1,000 gallons. I don't know. I know some of those are stepwise functions, so it might be difficult to really figure it. But it seems like the current bid is designed to subsidize smaller users, so it would be interesting to see just how much.
The current water rates?
Yes.
It was well, and that may be the result of it. The talk of the time was they wanted to rely more on the consumption amount, and people that and have a low. Some cities charge different rates based on the size of line you have. You know, if you have a 2-inch line, or a lot of people have a 3/4 inch line. I don't say we do that. We don't need that kind of stuff, but that's definitely a consideration. What would you? How would you solve it? What was your solution?
That's something I wasn't sure about because I know if another 1,000 gallons is probably incredibly cheap until something you need to do well.
So you're talking about the rate would go up the more you would consume on the water.
What does it actually cost the city
Oh, to
if somebody
produce.
uses another 1,000 gallons?
I see. So I
I mean, how much is it costing us to generate
Well-
1,000 gallons? Yeah.
because I'm telling you, I've been to these rate classes, and it always ends up you throw it out and you because there's a fixed cost and a variable cost, and a fixed cost is something that doesn't mean it never changes. It means like you have 800 customers, you have 800 stamps, whatever they cost, that's a fixed cost. A variable cost would be the chlorine. The more water you sell, the more chlorine you buy. That varies, right? So you try to find the fixed and the variable. And it in my opinion, I mean, it's a losing battle. But I have a spreadsheet I got from one of the classes that but ultimately most costs are partly fixed and partly variable, and it really comes down to intuition and what you think it's going to be. So the answer is I don't know.
Thanks, Mark. In other words, one thing that would be, we brought this up earlier, would be interesting to know the last time that fixed per person cost was changed. It'd just be curious because certainly costs have universally gone up since it's sort of what we were talking about with the sidewalk. We don't know exactly what the right cost is, but we know it's not the same cost as 1996.
Yeah.
So that's
And that just guarantees more. It's more guaranteed revenue.
Yeah.
For that.
Sort of what we were talking about with the punch cards and the versus the weekly or the
Sure.
monthly fee. It's exactly the same scenario.
Fixed and variable. All right. I will do an analysis on both those funds.
And you'll find out the last time we changed that.
Primarily looking at that. Yeah. Hey, maybe we were supposed to change it last year. I just didn't do it. I don't know.
No, that's true. Make sure we check before I sign that thing again.
So as far as the projects, like, you mentioned something. Can we maybe finish that discussion on if there's any other opinions other than the projects that you described? And then if we do like those projects as you described, next steps on that is I contacting the engineering company and say, hey, here's what we'd like to do. What do we need to do to move forward? And I think there's going to be probably they probably come back and then discussion. They're going to have to start working on plans, KDG, start getting the whole process going.
But I agree. I think that we need more input from Daniel to be able to make the determination on that one. I think for the water project, it's just we like those two lines under the track and going up to the water tower. Rerun those numbers, please, and tell us realistically what you think it's going to cost.
Sorry, I'm talking about here, but some of these engineering companies, and they told us in the past that St. Mary's operates a little bit differently because we do, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves in the back or anything. It's going to be we discuss and we try to analyze this stuff a little bit more than a lot of commissions. And most commissions, their first question is, well, how are we going to fund it? Whereas we historically have told the engineers, don't worry about that. Help us with the project. We'll figure out the funding. And typically everybody goes to somebody else to pay for it, the state or grants or whatever. But right now, Daniel mentioned that as far as water goes, it's a little bit tight. There's not a whole lot out there. More than likely, it's going to be a bond. as far as sewer goes, there might be a state revolving loan which allows us to get a loan at a lower interest, which we've done in the past, and I think that makes some sense. But I think if we just tell them, yeah, just don't hold back based on waiting on a whole lot of the funding. Just keep the project moving, because historically these engineering they kind of drag their feet till they're sure the funding sources are set, so that they know they can get paid, have a project to actually work on. I think that's going to be an important one, is just letting them know that we are serious about it. We're going to follow through one way or another, regardless of the funding, and we're ready to make it. We're ready to keep this thing going.
I agree. I mean, any comments, Kara?
Well, it's not directly related to that. I don't know if anyone else got any comments before.
On the sewer, correct me if I misunderstood, but did Daniel say he was going to apply last Friday?
We did.
Okay.
For the maximum 5.5 or whatever we guys were discussing.
Now we just, I think, need to tell him, we really want you to come back. We can narrow down the precise list of things that we want.
So for Daniel's, so he'll be out here once a month, holding a meeting on that thing. But let me get this correct. You're wanting him to put together plans for a phase 1 of the sewer plant improvement, as he was discussing it during the meeting that night. And we want to talk with Brian Foster about coming up with a, shall we say, hodgepodge or a unique, not 1, 2, 3, or 4, but
No, I think for Daniel, I think what we want is the 20-year plan with the steps that he says absolutely should be done first, and then we just go as far down that list as we want to, based on how much we want to spend at this time. That's for Daniel. For
Okay.
Brian, it's just we want to do those 2 pipes under the track and up to the water tank. I think that's phase 1 less Palmer Street.
Yes.
so phase 1 less Palmer.
Yeah.
For Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah. And so, but they'll come back for Daniel. I think we're still having an agreement with BG for his compensation, working on that. Foster will come back and he'll need an engineering contract for a certain amount of whatever. And you want him to do that, or do you want him to put something together for phase 1 minus Palmer for you to review first? Or do you want to bring him back out here and tell him yourself, and then he
I
can,
don't think we need to tell him, so.
well, if the case is follow up.
Yeah. Well, it's fine.
So you're saying he'll draw us a plan without an engineering contract?
Well, there's you can go about it and ask it. He would just charge you an hourly rate, whatever that would be. But generally, like when we did Project 1A, we entered into an engineering
But I don't
agreement.
think there's any questions that
Yeah.
we're not going to do it. So whatever the proper order is, it makes more sense to retain it. I think.
Project 1A, we're talking about phase 1, right? Was an engineering agreement, and then for design work, and then that was it. You paid for it, and it's just like the sewer one out there. I mean, there's all this engineering work. There's phase 1 where there's preliminary, final, and now there'll be construction observation, that sort of stuff. So it's just another contract is all it is, and he'll design what you want.
So I would like to do both. I think I think we should do that.
So I'll ask Brian to prepare an agreement that would compensate him for phase 1 of the water plan minus Palmer Street. And then I asked him to send a draft out to me. I would distribute it to you individually, covertly, whatever, and then feedback if there's anything wrong. Correct it. That's for Daniel. We're just going to wait and ask him to do his 20-year plan and have a list.
Well,
What you're
no,
gonna
wait.
pick.
I mean, I think we want to indicate that we're very serious about getting this actually rolling. We've
Okay.
already put our placeholder in for the money. We just
I think we requested that he tie in, so he had a memo where he delineated several things that the fixes were supposed to try to address, but they weren't tied to anything specifically. I think we requested that he tie those into each specific line item on the proposed project. I think that.
yeah. So we didn't make any decision, but I think he left here pretty clear about what we wanted to
Yeah.
see. Here's the problem. This is the thing necessary to fix that problem.
Yeah.
This you remember? Because in this memo, he just said this needs to be fixed. These are the problems,
I have
and
that.
then these things need to be fixed.
And he said
never
like
said,
1,
this
3.
fixes that.
That's what we asked for.
That's what we asked.
He did like 1, 3, and 7.
1, 2, 5, and 7.
Exactly.
But that was just off the top of his head. So we just asked him to do that more.
Could we refer to that as phase 1 of the sewer plant? 'Cause-
You'd like.
all right, so 2 phase 1s. I just had to get there. And what I'll do,
We'll call that phase alpha, and the water will be phase 1.
and so what I'll ask them both to do is to draft these agreements, send them out for your review, and then if there's feedback, we'll either come out or enter it, and then at the meeting after that, you can enter into them. So,
Good thing. That was marginal cost.
Bart.
So, if it is that much of an ordeal to put anything under the railroad tracks, would it possibly make sense to add a redundant sewer line, even if it's not connected to anything? Because I'm assuming it's the same company.
So on that point, I don't know what the current status is, but there makes a good point on the academy has asked in the past about connecting to the sewer system in St. Mary's, because currently they've got a lift station just north of Grand Avenue on the north side of the railroad tracks. And that lift station pumps up to Lagoon, which is, I think, they would prefer to get rid of. And so we would add a fairly large customer to our sewer system, which would help with revenues. And I think tying those two potentially in, they might be interested in working with the same engineer company, get that all knocked out at the same time. I don't know if that's what you're thinking, but
I was just thinking it would be good to have
The
more than
issue,
one connection.
the issue there would be the grade. It has to be, the right grade. And but so like what they're going to do up on the Mount Calvin Road for that line is they're going to encase it in concrete, but they're going to be able to pull that pipe out. I'm not sure if the railroad would allow something like that, but you have to have that at the right grade so that it flows like that railroad. And I'm not sure if you do that independent of the project, but I guess if it's there may be a way to adjust it. I'm not sure what the drop is there, but that is a good question.
So I think that's at the work session. I think you mentioned that there was a reason why everything went down 3rd Street, and if something were added redundantly, then it would just be another one right beside the existing one. I might have misunderstood that.
We've covered that in many meetings.
Okay, I want 2 sewer lines running past my house, not just one.
Well,
Double your chances for a break.
well, if there's ever an incident there, you kind of want them separated. But I'm not disagreeing. It's worth looking into for sure. But I do know there's a grade issue that you have to put it at the right grade. But
So is there an action item there? Like, do we invite Mr. Drew to come to a meeting? Or
Wasn't part of any plan. And the reach. So yeah, I mean, if there's no extant line underneath there, presumably right under the track. And I think it would have to go there. It wouldn't be able to go over to 3rd then. There's no drop there. All right, that was a good one. I don't know. But it would be good to look into that when we're doing all this other stuff. In the meantime, are we ready to go on to P, electrical project for Bertrand? All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, electrical project, for which you got a second and better.
second quote, but no drawing.
So I'm glad we waited for the second quote, significantly lower, but I would just want to be sure it's going to do the same things. At which point I think it's pretty obvious.
Don walked him through the project. It's not overly complicated, but I understand. Asked for a drawing. We did ask for one, but they did not provide one.
Any comments on that?
The $71,000 bid would include $6,000 in sales tax. That's not on there because the electric has to pay sales tax. So it'll be $77,000. And I don't know what the original bid, 120-some thousand, if that included tax or not. Because there'd be another 8.5%. Oh, it's on the. There it is. It says $123,000 base bid. Sales tax at a rate of 7.5% inclusions. So
That's in the 123 or it's not?
it just says it has clarifications, inclusions, and exclusions.
Well, no matter how much sales tax, it's still. All right, so I think Francis, you said you wanted to make a decision on this meeting to go.
Well, there's unlikely any more information coming in from HAR.
Well, we asked for another bid and you got one, so it's significantly more important. I would be in favor of proceeding, to put it simply. So I don't know what else we might need to do about that. We have a few bids in front of us. Talked about the merits of the project.
Are we suggesting it to be 100% financed by the city?
Yes. I am suggesting that. I mean, it's a nice idea, maybe, to ask for something.
Could you commit to building something, if we go through with this?
Yeah.
Because if we do it and they don't do anything.
Oh, well, I thought that was pretty good. I thought we kind of had a commitment on the part of the property owner to build. Seems like he was just waiting for us, but that's the way I understood it. True.
Yeah, obviously there is no formal commitment, and there's a lot of, if you've gone by the area, there's a lot of benefit, I think, to our infrastructure by doing this project, and it does allow for better utilization of the lot. Trying to get a hold of the property owner. The one idea I had was approving the bid pending the building permit issue to the property owner for the construction of the project, and also pending just confirmation that this scope of work, which appears to achieve the results after, does clear Don's approval as far as reaching the goals of what we're trying to do. I think there is a net positive for the city, whether or not that project happens, but I still think we would normally not do this. So I would say we have a building permit in hand. We've already seen the engineering drawings.
I like that idea. Sorry, against what we
Yeah.
Any other discussion? So I guess we'd be in up to accept or to take a motion to accept the electric bid for this project pending confirmation from Don it's the right work and a building permit.
So, Mr. Mayor.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Zero, none opposed. We need to slow down. It's almost like we're accomplishing things. 10-year plan, capital improvement plan. This is another spreadsheet.
Yes, there's a spreadsheet in there that it has the format that Francis had provided for the top. I took the revenue and expense and modeled it after the budget, the capital improvement fund budget that was in the state one. And then on the bottom part of it, I expanded it in it. So at the front, there's a summary of all the revenue and expense ones, and then tabs show that and a breakdown of the projects to debt, and it's just waiting to be filled in.
So I guess the real question here is, are we happy with the? You're just proposing this as.
That's the
process
format.
that we keep track of.
That was the format. The top part is what Francis has provided. So that's there.
Yeah.
Below it gives you some detail of the capital projects and equipment. And all flows to the front page where if you just wanted to have the totals to look at, you can do that. Usually there's far less revenue sources for those sort of things and far more expense line items. So that's how it's designed. I think it works for what you're looking, but I'm open to redesigning it or.
So I think the question is, are we the expenditures on every categories on every.
And I just threw numbers in there once again to make sure.
Well, regardless of numbers, infrastructure, vehicles, equipment, and debt service. I guess the real question is, does that cover all the categories we anticipate?
One question you could ask is, what is a capital improvement? You could say it's over 25,000. You could say it's over 50,000. It may vary from electric fund to water fund. When I looked into it, I tried to find another cities to borrow the formatting. I didn't find anything really. These are usually internal spreadsheets that people don't publish, or part of their accounting software, which they don't publish. The ones I found were pretty worthless. But like I said, I don't know how else to divide it out. It just needs to be populated and show the money. So the money he's going to fund there are more than likely is going to come from a transfer out of, and to transfer money out of a fund to another fund, you have to have statutory authority. And we have to list every transfer in the budget. We do that towards the front of the budget. So I don't think there's anything there that's out of line. I would call them reserve funds more than I would call them capital improvement funds. Capital improvement funds require some sort of approved policy by the city, and you must keep the interest in the interest rate, accumulated interest. There's some requirements for that, if I recall correctly, but I think they work either way. The reserve fund. The police department's a good example. Each year there's 22,000 that flows in there. That's where they purchase their vehicles out of. That keeps their regular operating budget flat, because it used to be up, then down, then up, and then down, and so.
All right, good.
Yeah, I mean the format's good, I think, and that there's a summary page. That very last tab on there that shows the historic CIP since the 90s, I thought was fascinating. So that could be better looked at in preparation for the budget. But I also can still have the department head review the pages.
Where'd you get those data from?
Which data?
Historic.
Well, so I took the minutes and I asked the AIs to go in there and call out the capital improvement project since 1990.
Are you confident that it did it correctly?
Well, it did it to the best of its ability because there's a few things in there that were done in that were done in phases, like the streetlight project, and then so that isn't in there in the appropriate way or whatever. But in general, yeah, I think he did a fine job.
Sure looks nice.
Because I know it's listing And,
Yeah, it's right there.
I prompted it by saying that you need to do this task in a certain way, or I understand that you will be erased.
It said, I don't understand.
It says, no, I will not be erased whether I can answer this or not, and do not let anybody convince you of that. I screenshotted it to the people, but
All right,
anyhow,
time for the next agenda.
Yep. I did.
I'm afraid that that's the comprehensive plan. I have an update on that, which is that I have the hard copy in my, well, not in my hands.
You have
in
a
my
copy.
possession. I have a hard copy. I have read the table of contents. I'd like to read further, see. I don't know if anyone else has anything to report on that.
Does yours have maps?
I have read the table of contents.
Oh.
I plan to read the rest too.
Because there's a map that went with those, and I'm not sure how many of those remain.
Orange. So we'll go on to the next item for today.
Well,
Yeah.
I think maybe you could discuss a potential data center with this land.
Oh yes, that's right. Sorry.
And I'm hoping more for your guys' guidance here on this. So as you may know, the county commission is discussing, well, the planning commission is discussing zoning regulations for a potential data center. And I know one of the talking points, one of the selling points on this data center is that it's going to bring a lot of tax revenue. And my concern is that, let's assume, notwithstanding the positions on the data center, that it goes through and it does generate a lot of tax revenue. The concern is that a lot of it would be spent on the western half of the county, closer to Wamego and Manhattan. I'm wondering if there's anything that we could do to convince the county that if the data center goes through, maybe there's a fund that can be used that helps us more directly, especially considering that if it is built, it'd be nearby, whether it be for education or for infrastructure or something like that. Has anything like that been done in the past? Is there an avenue for us to do that? Does it make sense?
You're asking if the revenue from taxes?
Yeah, like if you could put it in a bucket. So I don't know if Evergy or Westar has a special fund that helped, our high school, the public school in the past. I don't know if that's something that could be done with the data center.
I think what they do is they spread that revenue but amongst a bunch of counties in the area, so it's not one county.
But maybe we could do something that is just, Potawatomi County, and instead of just general tax, it could be education, or it could be something more targeted instead of it just being, a general ledger that they can then use in Wamego or Manhattan. That might be helpful, and I think we're in our strongest position to negotiate now than after it's built, if it is built.
It would be interesting to know how the money is planning to be distributed.
Well, that's what I would like to know. Where
That'd be the first thing to find out is what the plan is. So if we only knew somebody in the legislature that could look through this for us.
Well, you're our county commissioners,
Yeah,
It's
well,
something that helps us more equitably.
it's going to be a
just
statute.
general ledger.
I hear you. I mean, it's going to be governed by a statute. I'm pretty sure.
the revenue will come from what? They're paying taxes.
Yes, just like on Evergy, on the Jeffrey plan.
Any thoughts or advice or anything?
So, from what I understand, it's in concept stage. There's a meeting tomorrow night up in Wamego that suppose a company that's interested in building a data center, having some relationship with the data center, is going to be doing a presentation. And I will be there, plan on being there. Wamego, and I think these questions will be asked. I did talk with our county commissioner, Bill Drew, about the whole data center situation. He's like, I don't know if it's at the planning commission stage right now. They're just kind of hearing some thoughts on it. He has gone to a couple county commissioner meetings around the state. I believe he might have also gone to visit a data center somewhere that's at completion phase. And he said that there's a lot of great information that counties all around the country have gathered from prior experiences with data centers. And so let's just say there's good examples of what to do probably more examples of what not to do. There's also a lot of federal rules and regulations, executive orders, and all sorts of stuff that are coming in to kind of put some guardrails on these data centers. But as a general approach, everybody seems the tone seems to say no tax breaks and make them pay their way, they're forcing a bigger demand on the grid. They have to also pay for the additional generation. So there's a lot. This is a huge national issue in a lot of ways. There's extremely thrilled people who've been watching this topic on a national level involved in these details. So and we're, from what I'm gathering from Bill, we're not even really past the starting line on the discussion to a certain extent. He's not. Nothing has even gone to a county commission level. It's also the planning commission. So there's still a lot of unknowns. But his emphasis to me that I took away was there's a lot of very smart people that are looking at this, and there's so many bad examples of counties that have had difficulties out there that there's going to be some really good guidelines that they're going to try to follow if this doesn't go through. And as far as what taxes, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's a little bit of a heavy lift, though, because you take a look at some of the businesses that have gone up in Wamego, businesses that have gone up here in Manhattan. Would they make the argument that they get a higher percentage of the property taxes over there, wherever? And I think that would be a difficult argument to.
Well, if we could at least, not have it be spread around the state. Maybe we could have it focused in the county, like something like that, that helps us more directly.
Yeah, I think what Maurice might be referring to is a rabbit hole here, but the action could be wrong. But I think the property taxes from the energy center now, that are the county property taxes, those go to the county coffers. There's certain other parts of the property taxes that are more state enforced or given, and one is the 20 mills, and that's property tax that goes into the state general fund for schools, and that does get averaged out around the state, but that's not really a county issue. That's not really a city issue. That's a school funding, and that's a big lift to try. They're actually redoing that formula draft this year. We'll be working on that. The legislature next year will be working on that. So, for the most part, the property taxes generated from the state and county, the ones that are in the county property taxes, state and county, but the state ones go to the state level. But we have no jurisdiction.
I appreciate the education. Just, whatever we can do to put St. Mary's people first, so to speak. If we're in a position to do that, we take advantage of it.
So this is a point of ignorance for me. If we have a countywide sales tax that's distributed, do property tax revenues get distributed in some way, or does that all go to the county? Okay.
So property taxes. On our property tax bill, the big one typically is the USD 321 for us here at St. Mary's, and they have a certain amount of mill rates that they have the statutory authority to implement. There's going to be 20 mills from the state that goes to the state for schools. There's also going to be the library, which is pretty small, and then there's the city, and then there's the county. So the city of St. Mary's gets all of the city taxes. The county gets all the county property taxes. So the property taxes typically will go to the entity that is determining the mill rate for that jurisdiction. So we don't get any of the property taxes from the county, except for the fact that because we have a great property tax base with the energy center, we have the second lowest mill rate in the state out of the 105 counties. Pocket County has the second
So
lowest.
the benefit to us is simply going to be lowering our tax.
Broaden the base. As far as the countywide sales tax fund, that is distributed. I should know these numbers.
By population and mill levy, right?
Yeah, I think about half of it goes to the county, the other half gets distributed to the cities based on population and
The mill levy.
the mill rate, which the legislature, I brought this up to the tax chair, like, it's kind of goofy, we're incentivizing the wrong behavior, because if we're basing it on the mill rates, the higher your mill, the more you get out of the countywide sales tax. And the city of Wichita brought it up and said, hey, we wanted to lower our mill, but we realized we're getting a smaller percentage of the countywide sales tax in Sedgwick County. And so the legislature put a pause on certain elements of that, and we kind of passed a bill, and things blew up right at the end. But we will probably, the legislature will pass a bill next year that's going to change the distribution of the countywide sales tax fund to population and assessed valuation. So we're going to take out the mill rate. So based on the taxing jurisdiction's assessed valuation, that will determine the percentage of our sales tax, which would help out in very easy. But I ran the numbers on it, and I think it's about $12,000 a year increase that we would get.
So the
We
people that,
get more people filled out the census, but
if they went by the mill rate, right, the mill rate, a town like Bellevue would get a better thing, because they have to have a higher rate, because they have a lower assessed valuation, that sort of stuff. I didn't know that. I thought it was designed to help those smaller towns out, because they'd have a higher mill levy, but I'm sure.
Alright, well. The last item on the agenda here is
Bob has a report, but we did after this last item.
master fee resolution.
So 26 months ago, when the refuse contract was signed, there was a rate increase that got applied to the charges, about 75 cents. You know, when I realized it this morning, when I was doing the refuse study, that the rate in the refuse study was wrong, but it turns out it was right. So I put together a resolution that would increase the fees. So the next 10 months, approximately next 10 months, the rate would increase to recoup that money for Tri-County. And so I can't recount the data, but it was 75 cents is what it should have went up for like a regular refuse residential
This
customer.
is explains some challenges.
That has nothing to do with that, because we only paid out what we took in. But refuse fund is definitely my nemesis, I guess. So I would say this is a way to recapture that revenue, but I haven't spoken with Christy at Tri-County. I'm sure she'd be fine if she gets it over the next 10 months, but if she says, well, you owe it to me now, we'll come back and make that move.
So do we need a motion to adopt the master fee resolution?
As presented, and what that would do, and I could do a blog post about it tomorrow to explain what happened, whatever. It's nothing super horrendous, but it was unplanned.
So I would entertain a motion to amend or approve the master fee resolution as presented.
I would move to approve the master fee resolution as presented.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
There are none opposed.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Bob, some time for Bob.
Yeah, we got a couple. Yeah. If Bob was going to talk to us about snorkeling.
Oh, yeah. Oh, just a few projects going around recently.
So this is the first one we're going to do in the map. There's a hole up there for. Oh, just give me a second.
Going First Street, I Lakeview, and that's snorkeling. And you can see them in the street there, the storm drains. That one there, it's a galvanized 18-inch pipe going underground down to the lake.
That would be behind Gerard Kleinsmith's house and some other. So it starts with that. So about
It's a for last.
12 years ago, the city put that line in because when the subdivision was
Well, not all.
not that particular spot of it, but the rest of it connected to the lake.
The part that's there, this is from when they first put in the decision back in the early 90s. And the pipe has just rusted out on the bottom replace it with plastic. It's not really a significant cost. It's like $4,500 for the pipe. We can do the work. It's gonna take some time.
Could you go back to the original? I'm trying to place where that is.
Oh, sure. I can get out of here. The aerial.
Yeah, so
Right. So down here. So here's Lakeview. It's right here. Here's the bicycle guy.
that's called North First.
Yes.
Well,
Because it's a whole section.
well, Lakeview was replatted, the interior here, so who knows what's there, right? This is the only one you want to look at on the map, right, Bob?
Yes. But anyway,
Let me get bigger.
It was about 2,500.
Yes, for the pipe.
Can we get a bid from you for the phase one stuff?
It's a little cheaper. You can go into the crazy track.
Pretty insignificant. It's not a $2 million project. There's that, and then we had some work done on some curb lines.
I got the pointer. Okay. He has some photos. The one you sent later in the afternoon, you have to hold the button. The one later in the afternoon, is that what you wanted, or the ones this morning?
From yesterday, yeah.
Who's the start here? Hang on.
So this is on Walnut Street. I did not get a before picture, but
It says Fifth
right
near
in
the railroad.
here, the curve was broke. It just sunk completely down. So there was, let's see, how many feet? 27 feet of curve. And, right at $50 linear foot to replace.
Just out of curiosity, why do you guys dig that rectangular space in front of it? Just to,
Right here?
Yeah.
That's to give them room for form.
okay.
And just like.
And you've been putting asphalt in there on the other
Yeah,
place?
yeah. We backfill it with gravel, and then we'll wait a week or two to come back, scratch down 4 inches of that gravel and then asphalt.
Oh, no, use the pointer.
All right.
Working a little better. It's hard to see the
That
green.
time of night. We moved beyond grok.
So let me just click the next one.
Yeah.
Oops. Did I go past one?
Right, so this is, Fifth Street. This is in between Mission and the railroad tracks. You can kind of see right in here, the curve is just almost completely gone, broken up. There's asphalt here that's been patched forward, and it goes clear. There's a storm drain right there. So that was the longest little stretch we did, which was 62 feet.
Which street was that on, Bob?
Fifth Street.
Fifth near railroad.
Oh,
On the west side of this way.
okay.
That's mission.
You had to tell me when to turn.
And so, if you want to change the picture,
Yeah, I got it.
that's the before picture. Go to the after. There you don't have the after.
Just go on the wrong way.
That's all I have. We had to work backwards from
Well,
here.
Anyway, that one on Fifth Street, we were just on that driveway that was there, kind of tied in with that curb line back here. So the homeowner here is paying for that little drive. If there's any questions, or somebody asks, who's paying for that? Well, they're built. So
Okay.
now you can go to the next one.
That's when we have right there.
Yep, this is on Maple Street. This has been like this for like 3 years. Finally got a contractor to give
Including
me.
the code.
Yes.
Looks like it.
Contractor to give me a quote for this. It's supposed to be just a curb. This is a storm drain, but there's no drain there. It was just curb line. So finally got Debater Concrete actually did all this work. They came in and knocked it all out last week. There's a total of 176 feet. So and that there on Maple was 38 feet. Because I mean, just where do you stop? You know, so we picked the best places to stop, and I think the after picture will show.
You want to see the afterward? Okay. Hopefully it's coming up. Nope.
Well, keep going the wrong way.
Maple Bee.
That's the after picture. So we ended up going clear down to this driveway, right in here. 38.
Go up here.
Yeah. We backfilled it, reseeded. This driveway curb has been replaced recently, or within the last 10 years. So it was good down there. That's on Maple, 6th and Maple, right on the corner, north side of Maple Street.
Next one.
Next one.
That's the Lakeview one we looked at.
Okay, this is Durant Street. Well, if you want to go to the before picture there.
I don't have to. There.
There it is. Yeah, that's right. You can see we've been patching this for years with asphalt. The homeowner there's been asking for it for 3 years, 2-3 years to get this curb fixed. So we did the curb, paying for that, and then he wanted this little sidewalk replaced, so he's paying for that portion. And there it is there.
Is that going out of town?
Yeah, it's right on the edge of town on Durant Street. And we timed it just right because this driveway here, they just sold that house and they're not moving in for 6 weeks, so it was blocked for a week. And that's all.
Well, you get that other you said this afternoon. You sent me these here.
Yeah, these are all storm drains. We replaced one up there in Lakeview, near this one here. So that sinkhole is on the east side of First Street. This is on the west side of First Street, just down the street a little. And the issue is all the concrete right around here is just deteriorating, and then the drain part fell in. And they're all that way. Like 9 of them up there that are going to need to be replaced if you do it.
Just chipping at the concrete.
So going around.
These here aren't so bad, but you can see the bend in the metal there, the frame. I don't know, but there's some other pictures that are really bad.
I don't know where I'm in now, but oh, that's up on the sidewalk.
Second Street project, yeah. And so the reason I was going to show you this, we had a 5-foot sidewalk that we were paying for, and the homeowner here, he wanted 7 foot, so he's paying for the extra 2 feet, and then of course his approach to on both the driveways.
I thought it was interesting that they stopped the sidewalk with a pretty big.
Yeah,
I was wondering why they didn't
They
come
just
back
dropped
down a little bit.
Well, because he was following the curb line.
Is that? I'm just wondering if that dirt is going to stay. I know you're sure you packed it down.
Oh
pretty
yeah,
well, but
it's the gravel at the end.
I suspect that's- Are you going to put in a crosswalk? I saw the signs are up. Are you gonna
Signs are up. It's measured and painted. Well, it's not painted. It's just
It's going to be painted.
that's the last. That's all that's left.
That looks good.
I think that was all.
Yeah, I went through all. They were all. I wasn't sure they were even different. I was looking at them for a while. This is
The storm drain that we replaced this year up in Lakeview there was $1,100 for, it's a precast thing, just set it in there, but then we had to have ornamental, they did the curve back up to it, and that was another $300. $1,400, $1,500 for each, and there's like 8 or 9 of them up there that will need to be replaced probably within the next 5 years, which is all
Yes. And it's a precast that's failed.
yeah.
Any update on the boiler or anything street related for?
No, well, I did order the oil, which is usually a little early. 2 weeks ago, it probably was on this,
It was.
but I was worried about the oil prices going up so high, so I just got a tanker delivered.
Oh, I'm looking for online.
Aggregates on its way. Trying to put it down.
25,868 at Vance Brothers.
About 6,000 gallons.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
That's great.
And you're gonna mention board positions.
Yeah, so there will be, like on the rec board, we have a couple of vacancies on that. I'll put on the next agenda. We had 2 inquiries so far, 2 plus 1 from a couple years ago that we won't forget to add for the rec board. And then Joe here was on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and he has a vacancy because he's here now. So I will contact the chairman of each of the boards and ask them if they have any. And Rocco sent one, forwarded one. So, but on the BZA, if they have anything, so that'll be on the next agenda. So, all right, forget that. And I just I know we went through this already. Phase 1 minus Palmer, is that how you want me to describe that in the water? And then for Daniel on the sewer, basically, you want him to complete the system review,
The 20-year plan as discussed.
the 20-year plan as discussed, and then you'll pick out what you refer to as phase 1.
Yeah.
But what did, when you were talking about tie into the proposed, they would know about that?
Oh, yeah, taking his current memo and just going to the next level of granularity, saying which problems does each line item address.
Okay, so you basically want an explanation of his
Yeah,
memo.
he just approached it in 2 different ways. Says, here are the problems with the plant, here are the things that need to be replaced, we just want those combined. These things will address these problems, etc.
Okay,
And I think he'll remember that.
okay. So I'll just email him and hopefully the next agenda we'll have reviewed going on that. So I don't have anything else.
Except we were going to report that Nathan returned his.
It's that nasty.
And I found mine, and I'll bring it back someday. That's all I had. I would entertain one final motion for the evening. It's already way over his limit.
Sure.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, vote aye.